Hi everybody, welcome to the Rambling Toffee podcast. I'm Mark. I hope everybody's enjoying the wonderful weather that is outside at the moment. Miserable, wet, dark, cold. Welcome to January. It's the 29th today. I think everybody's just fed up with this weather and fed up with the dark mornings and dark evenings, and just looking forward to the spring and weather improving, and we hopefully, as we move on towards the summer. So, we want it to get there. We've got that ongoing. It doesn't help by the fact that, being an Evertonian at the moment is not great, and it's just like never ending story, isn't it, really? That is, there's no light at the end of the tunnel. I start these podcasts, I try to be optimistic and I try to talk about Everton in a positive light. And there's a lot of good stuff out there that, is related to Everton, and that's the fans, of course. The Everton community is great. We've got the Fab, who are doing a really good job as well. We've got some really good, good stuff on that sense, that, is keeping us going in a sense. Shouts out to, the likes of Toffee TV and, Ped and, and Baz and, John Blaine out there. I know I've got a few people, part of, the Toffee TV that, every day they do this, and every day they, try to, make it as interesting as possible, try to talk about Everton in a positive light, but you just can't at the moment. I listened to their live earlier on, and it just starts like that. What can you talk about? The team are not performing at the moment as well. We've got injuries. We've got a 10-point deduction that's gone to an appeal. We've got a second charge. We've got a takeover that's just dragging on and on and on. We can't spend any money to try and strengthen the team because we have no money. You know, and we've got a thin squad as it is, and it's just like never ending. And it's like, when are we going to get that light at the end of the tunnel? When are we going to get the positive news? When are we going to find out if the takeover has been successful or not? What my thoughts on 777 partners. They are not good. I don't think they're a good fit for Everton Football Club. But at the moment, we're not even knowing if they're going to get approval or not. If they don't take over, who's going to come in? Is there anybody out there that's interested? You hear in the rumours and hear out there that there are people interested in buying Everton Football Club, but they're not coming out and telling us that we would like to take over. This is what we want to do, but it's not there. So everything that is ongoing at the moment is just like we're on hold. We can't move forward. We feel like we're going backwards. Yes, the other positive thing is about the stadium actually, still going on, still being built, and 777 partners are putting money in to keep the club going, week to week, month to month, while this saga goes on about the approval and if they're going to take over the football club. And one thing about that is that, yes, they're putting money in and they're probably investing in the stadium as well to keep that going. I don't know. But there's going to come a point here where if we just need to know if they're going to get approval or not. If they're not going to get approval, the worrying thing is that this club, unless if they want their money back for what they're putting in, the only other place it's going to go is administration, and that means 9-point deduction. We have a second charge at the moment, as I mentioned. If the appeal fails, I hope it doesn't, but if the appeal fails, and that's 10 points there, and we get 10 points for a second discharge that we currently have for the same bloody thing that happened with the first charge, that's ongoing. Double jeopardy, as everybody said. That. So that's 20 points. Then if we do go to our administration, then it's 9. That's 29 points. We're relegated. We're gone. Is that what the Premier League want? When they set up PSRs, when they set it up 10 years ago, they set it up. The whole purpose is to make clubs compliant, that owners can't make sure they spent right and do the right things, but also the whole purpose of it was to help clubs if they had financial situations, financial issues, they couldn't, to help them and guide them through and not punish them. And you see it in the EFL. God knows how many clubs that have had bad owners, and basically they're not just punishing the owner for what he's doing or she's doing. They're punishing the fans and punishing the team. They're punishing them by putting points deductions, by everything else. They're doing the same thing. There's got to be a better way. And you're right, in some senses, if there's a sporting sanction, meaning that said club has spent all that money and they're riding high up the table and they're going towards, say, the Premier League and they're going up that way, but they found out that they've gone over their spending limit because they've been wanting to get higher and higher. And that's the whole story anyway. But, that's when you start asking questions about sporting sanctions is, all these clubs want to do, if you're in the Championship or in League One or Two or Conference, well, it used to be National League, right through to the Premier League. Owners come in because they look at football clubs, big clubs, small clubs, big clubs with big stadiums, and they think we can make money from this. And in some senses, you can, but it's also, the whole purpose of it. You go in, you put your money. You want to put the money in to help the club grow, to get better, to get bigger, and to go and progress and get to the next level. If you're a Championship club, you want to get in the Premier League. If you're a Premier League, a Championship club, and you go into the Premier League. If you're a Premier League club and you've been in there, but you've got an owner who's a billionaire and who's got money and he wants to invest, they should be allowed to and do the right way of doing it. There's got to be a right way that when you're spending money, that you're getting money coming back, and you keep your finances in check. I'm not a finance guy. All I'm hoping is that Bashiri came in and he just went scattergun and he just kept on throwing money, more and more money at it. And because he had Usmanov behind him, he had something to back him. So if you think I didn't have as much money, he'll come in, sponsor the stadium, sponsor, naming rights to the new stadium, sponsor the women's team, sponsor the training ground, all sorts of things. Money that was dripping back in, which kept us going and kept us, not breaking PSRs. But as soon as he had gone, and of course, good old, the war in Ukraine happened, money started to dry up, and he didn't have that backing to actually help him to sustain us and keep us going. I didn't want to start on a financial about all this shenanigans and everything else about that, but it's just how it is. Should have made it easier and understand for so we as clubs can progress and can go further forward and actually can compete at the top end of the table, winning titles, winning trophies, getting into Europe, all that great stuff, and being competitive. There is a better way around this, but the Premier League seem to only care about the 6 clubs at the top end, and they don't want clubs like Aston Villa, who are currently doing quite well at the moment in the Premier League. But now I heard a story today that maybe next season they may have to sell players, similar to Newcastle, so they can continue not breaching the PSR rules, unless, well, of course, unless good old Dicky Masters decides to, change the rules on that subject, so might be something a bit different to a UEFA model. We'll see, but it seems like Newcastle has to sell their best players so they can try and bring players in. That shouldn't be the case. It defeats the object. If you want the Premier League to be the best in the world, as they claim it's to be, every team in that league, if they've got money and they should be allowed to spend that money. We spent, yes, when we spent, this is the thing, when we spent that money in, I think it was 2018, when we spent 13 players and 3, number 10s and everything like that, and we spent money, that period, what we've seen is this. It's a very simple thing. You spend the money, the players that we brought in weren't good enough. 1 or 2 were good, like Jordan Pickford, of course, who's still with us. I'm not going to say Michael Keane because he came in at the time, but he came in. But Jordan Pickford was probably, out of all the players that we've had, has been the most successful, and probably Richarlison as well later on. We have had players that have come in that have been successful for us, but 90% of those players that came in have not been successful, and they failed, and it's down then to your manager and your director of football that you have at the time. And if you see the spiral that happened, we keep on putting more money. It failed miserably. We didn't have the right people in. We didn't have the right, and also it's down to Gus, the owner, the board, and everybody else who are part of that structure and part of that process. And that's why we got in the mess that we did. But if you have that money and you basically get the right director of football in, get the right manager, get the right recruitment right, get the right people in, you get the right place and had a plan and a structure and everything else of how you're going to go forward, we could have been in a very different place. We could have been in a very different place. We could have been higher up the table. We could have been competing again, and we may not even be breaching PSRs because of the size of the club. We would have been back up there with the big clubs. And I'm not going on about what good old Dickie Masters said regarding Notts Forest and everything being small clubs, but that's what's happened nowadays. They look at clubs like ourselves, the size of Everton, of course. It's about over 1 million fans or even more than that all over the world. We're building a fantastic stadium. We're going to everything in that sense. The fan base is, as I say, is massive and big and passionate. We're in the city. We're a city club. The history is rich and amazing. The titles that we've won, the players that we've had. But to be called that in a small club, I'll come more into that. But this is what it is currently. And all this energy and drive and passion and everything else that I put into my football club, the club that I care about week in, week out, it's on my mind every day. It's from the minute I wake up, from the minute I go to sleep, even probably in my dreams, Everton are on my mind. Thinking about what will happen next, hoping that we'll get some positive news, hoping that we will become a competitive football team again that will drive, compete at the top end, to be that club, that team that I remember when I was a child, remember the team in the 80s. I'm very lucky that I saw Everton Football Club being a champion and getting to cup finals and being in Europe. I saw that. And I was lucky enough to be able to go games when we were a good side, a top 5 big club, as referred to back in them days, and being a founder member of the Premier League and being referred to that. And it's great that, I can say that, but it's like now is that it's 30 years since we last won the FA Cup. And, 30 years on, we're looked upon as a small club by the CEO of the Premier League. And if it's by him, it's by his attitude towards a lot of clubs in the Premier League and what he thinks of them. He only thinks about the 6. And sadly, that's how it is, because I just saw a tweet that they want to do like a friendly Premier League tournament in the US or in Asia in the summer, and it will be the usual suspects who will be playing there: United, Liverpool, and Arsenal. Not Tottenham. I don't think because they're touring anyway, and I think City and Chelsea have got games over there as well. So they're trying to create a tournament over there. For the big six, for those clubs, and nobody else gets an invite. It's not thought of because you know they want to focus on the brands. They want to focus on the fans all over the world. And sadly, all the fans all over the world follow those clubs. They get more airtime on TV in the UK, but also all over the world. That the histories indicate that from Liverpool, Manchester United, and Arsenal, those three specific teams get such their fan bases all over the world is just immense, and they get and Premier League wants to focus on them, and in reality they should be focused on all 20 clubs in the Premier League, not just a few, and that's what the banner says. Select for the many for the few. I can't remember what the wording is now. Sorry about that, but you can understand where I'm coming from. But again, it's just like you know, where's the hope for us as fans? I'm going to the game on Saturday, Tottenham. I went to the game against Luton. I'll come into that in a minute. And I just you can just see, not just as fans, we want to get behind the team, and we do. But it's like it's January. Okay, you can use an excuse. It's January. It's cold. It's wet. It's miserable. And you just want it to be lighter and sunshine a bit more. And you go to the game. You've got in the back of your mind, the 10-point deduction. You're worried about your club because it could go into administration if there's no takeover of the club. There is no what's going to happen next to that. You've got that on your mind because you care deeply. It's your club. It's a part of your family. It's a part of who you are and how you become. And you've got all this on your mind. You go to the game with your mates, and you want to get behind the team. You want to see the team do well on the pitch. Just putting the effort in, like you do, because you work all week, like we do. We work all week. We want a bit of light relief. We want to go for a few pints with your mates. You want to talk about the game. You want to get behind the team, and then you see that. And I'm talking about the Luton game on Saturday. You see the performance on the field. You see the performance on the field like that. Luton deserved it. They had more opportunities. They looked better, more energised, motivated, wanted it more. And you can see it. And you can see from our perspective as an Everton team playing a different formation, the 4-4-2. The manager's trying something different. He's trying because we've got no Decore, who is like our main man. We need him back. It shouldn't be the case. We should have other players that can also fill that void and do a job as well. But it seems to be he's the main man, and because he's missing, we're struggling. And yes, what we saw was, you see that, you see Luton doing exactly the same thing again. You see players getting balls passed to them and they can't control it right. They can't do a job. They then launch it to try and get Calvert-Lewin to flick it on. He didn't have a great game. No disrespect to him. He's not scored in 15 games. He's low on confidence. Yes, it's great. His fitness is back, but he's our best striker. You try with Beto, who's not fitting in yet. He's better coming. It's better being on the bench, but when he's coming on, he can't make an impact in the game, and we're not seeing the best of him yet. So that's going to take time. I don't know when it's going to go click bang. And I know when we talk about the Luton game, as I am, we can go back. We had that 4 wins on the bounce. We had a click in the team, and I remember talking about how optimistic and positive I was that this is, we're going somewhere. We've got a team here that are working, fighting for this club. They don't give a shit about the 10-point deduction. They don't give a shit about it. We're going to go out and we're going to prove that we're good enough. And you can talk about the quality of these players. Are they good enough Premier League players or whatever? They were doing a job. They were getting the points. They were doing what they needed to do. For Sean Dyche, he was setting it up right. Everything was working at that precise moment. Then Christmas came along. We played well against Tottenham, but we lost. We should have had a goal given. Then VAR comes along and screws everything up as well. Add that to the Premier League, PGMOL, the whole fucking corrupt, elements that they are and what they've become. Because it feels every week that we get screwed by one VAR call after another. Tottenham game, goal disallowed when it was referee was fine. I've talked about this before. I'm not going to go all ground. You know what I think about this. Man City handball when it shouldn't have been a handball. Things have happened, and then we get injuries, and then what happens next is we come into January, and we seemed, as a performance-wise, no decorate through injuries. In the FA Cup against Palace at home, their home game, when Calvert-Lewin got sent off, and then another disgraceful decision. But again, the performance was not great, but it was set up right, and they defended well, and they did their job, and we came away not to concede. We play Aston Villa. I felt disappointed with that game. That's my personal view. I just felt, again, we weren't getting the ball and passing around and anything, but watching that game between two teams, Villa, who was up here, wanting to challenge up the top end and get into Europe. Don't know about winning the title, but, they're up there. And it was just a very disappointing game of football between two teams. And we came away with a point. Take the positives from that. We didn't concede again. So that was good. Corey came back in and then, got injured again in the Villa game. That's the funny story. He came in the Villa game, he came back in, and then after that he got injured again, and he's out again. But we play Palace in a replay. We win 1-0. Gomez, okay, he's hit and miss. Is he good enough? Well, that's another question you have to ask. But he came on, he scored that fantastic free kick, and we get through. But in that game as well, it was, we saw Crystal Palace making 5 substitutions. That's another complaint I have, is that Sean Dyche waits and waits and waits, and we get through, but it wasn't because of the goalkeeper, João Virginia, who kept us in it with his goalkeeping and doing a really good job. So the warning signs were there, and then we come to Luton, of course, and you see that. I sat there, and instantly, as soon as they were going up the field within 2-3 minutes, creating opportunities, and they were cutting right through us. And, we got the ball, we tried to play football a little bit, but when you passed it to anybody in the midfield, one or two, Jack Harrison's an example here, give it to him, and he was like losing the ball. He couldn't keep hold of the ball properly, and when he did get forward, he was trying to get through, cross the lines, get Calvert-Lewin in or Beto in, and he was just hitting one of their players all the time. And it was consistently like that. And, he's playing week in, week out. There isn't anybody challenging him to actually take his position. There's Dan Juma, who basically, when he does get an opportunity or play, he's not playing great at this moment in time. He has little moments here or there, but he's not making an impact. He's not forcing himself in. He's not pushing himself in. But in that game, I sat there and basically, trying to get behind the team, trying to support the team, shouting and chanting, trying to get behind the team. There was nothing going on. And it was just like, what's the point? What's the point? The fact is, we were 1-1 at one point, 1-1, and people think that they didn't want to replay. I was speaking to people next to me. I hope this doesn't, I won't really want this to be a replay. I don't want to go another game to add to all the games, especially with all the injuries we've got. We've got injuries. We've very thin squad. Nobody's coming in the transfer window. Kevin Felwell said that a month ago, and also Sean Dykes has said it today. It's looking unlikely that nobody's coming in, and it looks like we may see Michael Keane and Ben Godfrey go out the door. So that's even less players available for to take us to the end of the season. Michael Keane, I don't want him in the starting line. I don't want him starting at all. But it's a backup. Gomez is injured for I don't know how long he'll be. He's a backup. Dele Alli keeps on thinking that he's actually we're gonna see him this season. Then he gets an injury and then bang. It's like, what's the point? So will we see him? Keeps on getting another injury. So we've got all this going on in our head. And we got a game tomorrow night against Fulham, and then we got the game at Tottenham in the Premier League, and we need to get points. We need to get some points because at the moment we're still waiting to find out what will happen with the appeal. It's supposed to start in February, so we're still waiting for that. So what will be interesting is that it'd be great. The only positives I can think is if the appeal goes well and get all our points back rescinded, the second charge gets thrown out, meaning that we'll be further up the table, away from that relegation place, and we can get this big relief, and hopefully we'll get Decore back, and we'll get, James Coleman will hopefully be back soon anyway. Hopefully, I know Ashley Young was on the bench on Saturday, but we need an uplift. We're not going to, the other idea that was, the most shocking idea out there is Sean Dyche looking at the under-21s. Players who are playing well, give them an opportunity. What's the point? What's to lose? He might be fantastic. We've seen it in the past. With like Tony Hibbert, Leon Osman, many others who have been young players who have been given an opportunity. This was under Moyes, obviously. Come in, show what you can do. Bang. Perform well. And they become regulars. And they establish themselves. Of course, Leon Osman went on loan. And go on Ross Barkley, bring him in. But basically, players that are young players have the opportunity, given the opportunity to come in and actually make a name for themselves at that time. Simple, isn't it? But because you're just giving, the same old players all the time, freshen it up a bit, give them more impetus. Chimiti came on for 10 minutes, did a better job than what Beto did in 90 minutes on Saturday. So give him a chance. Start with him, with Calvert-Lewin up front if you're going to go 4-4-2. Do something different. Try something different. Try to make something, change the things. But will Sean Dyche do that? That's the question. Anyway, before I finish today, I've rambled on a bit too longer than advertised. I just want to mention, there are supporters out there, who are helping, and predominantly MPs at the moment regarding the appeal, not the appeal, but basically what happened with the select committee. And, it was a great letter that was sent out, what was on social media, that was sent out to Richard Masters of the Premier League to ask him for the minutes from the 10th of August meeting, and also his witness statement, and they were requesting them to actually see that information. So it'll be interesting what happens with that. Will it help with the appeal? Well, it'll be interesting because everything indicates to me that it was they set this sanction policy off on the 10th of August, and he did it purposely just for Everton Football Club, nobody else, so they can punish us. And that's basically what's happening at the moment. That's but it's great that we've got MPs in that select committee who ask the questions of Richard Masters, and and also the small club question, which I can't understand why he's coming with that, and that just shows his attitude towards a lot of clubs in that Premier League. He just looks at six clubs in that Premier League who wanted to break away into a Super League, and he wanted to, they're the clubs that he cares more about, because why? Because it brings money in for him, and brings money in for the Premier League. The 14 other clubs, they're just part of the actual Premier League, and that's what exists. And I hope a lot of other clubs start to realise this. I know Nottingham Forest will probably are realising that now for what's happened to them. Well, the fans anyway. And a lot of other clubs who, 1 minute, like Wolves, where they were close, they had to sell a lot of players so they can actually, you know, not be compliant. Everton has sold God knows how many players over the last few years. We've got a net spend, whatever people think of that. We've spent not much money at all on recruitment and anything like that. We've brought players in. It's just basically we're trying everything we possibly can as a club to try and get ourselves compliant and backing, but the Premier League don't give a shit about that. So, I just hope that the appeal is successful for us. We've got a good Casey. Everybody thinks he's been our best signing. Forget about the transfer window. He's been our best signing, hopefully, and pulls it out for us. But yes, the select committee, they asked the right questions, and he did everything they, could, and they've now sent a letter to him. So hopefully, we might hear more on that soon. I just hope we hear more on the takeover sooner rather than later. So there's a lot of things going on at the moment, and I just want to see the light at the end of the tunnel. But it's, will we get there? That's the question, isn't it? So, yes, so we'll see what happens. But yes, there is support out there, and of course, we always mention Andy Burnham. Been fantastic. Rotherham has also been there as much as he's a red nose. But I just think from national journalists, it's only Henry Winter, I think, who's on a national level been very supportive with his tweets regarding Everton. He put the story out about the select committee's findings, and also the letter that they've written to the Premier League. They put his input. So I've been very critical of him, but he put that report out. He put that on social media, and I think the Independent had an article on it on Sunday as well. So there was some story. The story did get out in some domain nationally, but it's just like, because of course Friday we clashed with a certain person leaving their football club, and that's when Sky Sport News, which is a news channel, decided that we'll just care about Jurgen Klopp and his time at Liverpool and all the wonderful things that he did, blah 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 blah. I mean, if you go to Anfield, you can sign his book of condolences if you like to. Um, you know, you know, next to there's another book. There was a book with Virgil van Dijk as well. If you wanted to see that, that's there, so you can have a look through that if you want to. I believe there's going to be a statue of him and everything else like that. But basically, what I'm saying is, Sky Sports News are still probably talking about it now, putting about 2 hour documentaries on about Jurgen Klopp from his start to beginning. I could see Sky documentaries putting stuff on about him and everything else. It's just, and because that was all going on this story, which is a massive story, not just for Everton, but for football in general, about an independent regulator as well, and everything about that, got nothing. And it continues. I don't think I've heard anything since. And that's the problem we have. That's why there's like nobody cares about Everton's situation. It's just like, oh, get over it. You got your 10-point deduction, get over it. You got this charge, get over that. Yes, you're gonna get relegated. Yes, you're gonna go in administration. Yeah, nobody. You just get over it, live with it. And all I'll say as I finish this, because if I ramble on and on, you could get bored with me. But who started all this? Who's to blame for all this? The owner of this football club currently, and the board of previous board. They've destroyed this football club, and they are, they've gone off into the sunset with their money because they got paid off, and you don't hear of them again. Never heard of them since saying they defended themselves or anything like that. They've gone. They didn't even bother to actually turn up for the commission hearing to support the club. That's just, hey, that's just how it is. And it just shows you the way you start thinking about certain people, if they cared about Everton Football Club more than they cared about money. They seem to be they care more about the money than they did about the football club. That's my view. Anyway, on that note, that's me done. Thank you again, as usual, for listening to my podcasts, listening to my ramblings and just going on speaking nonsense predominantly. If you actually agree with my nonsense, which is fantastic. If you disagree with my nonsense, that's fine as well. But thank you again for the support as per usual. Next podcast is next Monday, so I'll do a review on the Fulham game, of course, tomorrow night, and the Tottenham game on Saturday, and anything that happens as the week goes on. I'm on TikTok as well, so I always put something out on TikTok. If anything news happened within the week regarding Everton Football Club. So, keep abreast of that on social media and everything else like that. But again, thank you very much for your time. I'll speak to you again on Monday. Take care. Have a good week. Goodbye.